Hello, Exercises for Injuries blog readers and listeners. This is Rick Caselge with another interview with a fitness professional, more of a sports performance specialist. So today I am interviewing Julien Emery. He's going to chat with us about growing strains and hockey. So Julien, I'll get you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi Rick, thanks for having me. My name is Julien Emery, as you mentioned. I have an extensive background in hockey. I played hockey professionally and then became a strength and conditioning coach and have been doing that for a number of years now. And the focus of most of the athletes that I train are hockey players. So I'm happy to be here talking to you about the most common injury in hockey, which is a groin strain.
Okay. So then let's start off at the beginning. What are some of the causes of growing strains when it relates to hockey players?
Well, that's a great question, Rick, and that's something that a lot of hockey strength coaches and sport conditioning specialists, rehab specialists have been talking about for a number of years, and there's been some different approaches taken. Essentially, I look at it quite simply. You have a repetitive contraction that takes place, and the groin is a very important stabilizer. The muscles of the groin are very important stabilizers, and with any kind of repetitive use, you could get some chronic strain or some light strain from chronic use. And simply by not having the proper balance between your abductors and adductors, or your internal rotators, external rotators, flexors, and extensors, or myofascial sling imbalances, you can get some strains in there just from that alone. And I think those are sort of the most common causes of the injury.
Okay, so if a hockey player has a growing strain, what should they do about it, or what can they do about it when it relates more to like the exercise side of things?
On the exercise side of things, the most important thing is to address the imbalances. And one of the things that I think has been overdone a little bit is people look at core stability and really focusing on core stability and pelvic stability. And I think that's helped quite a bit. But we find in the hockey world that there are a fair amount of players that are okay with that. But we also, I think we've failed to look at the eccentric training of the groin. And I think it's important to train the groin in the eccentric fashion and take a look at hamstring injury prevention, hamstring injury rehab, and apply that to strengthening the groin. And what I mean by that is basically you have your flexors of the knee and the hip that are driving your knee and hip into flexion and sprinting, and the hamstring has to break your leg or slow down your leg in a full sprint, and that's often when the hamstring gets strained. And I think it's important to look at the groin in the same way. You have your abductors, external rotators, and extensors that are more powerful when pushing off, and more powerful than the brake that is the groin that works on internal rotation, adduction, and flexion. And I think that we need to strengthen that movement in an eccentric manner in order to help rehabilitate and strengthen that part of the body and avoid those injuries.
Okay, and maybe what would be an example or two of like some exercises that you would give someone that has had a previous growing strain in hockey?
As long as the injury isn't bad, I definitely always refer to physio as an injury specialist. And once the injury isn't acute and super painful anymore, and it's at a point where we can do exercises, I go into lateral lunging because that's an eccentric load on your straight leg. And I also go into some exercises using a cable where you're standing on one leg and loading the groin eccentrically. So you're going into a skate stride and just working on slowing your leg down. And I also use one where you lie on your back, and I actually will physically pull a person's leg out and get them to pull back. That way I'm again loading the muscle at length and changing that force-length relationship a little bit.
you have any last-minute points that fitness professionals and performance specialists should remember when it relates to growing strains in hockey and exercise?
Absolutely. Just look at the hip as, try not to look at any single muscle. Just look at hip mobility and make sure that your athlete has full hip mobility. And then take a look at where those injuries most often take place. And it's usually at the greatest length. So when you're in full extension, that's usually when those injuries start to happen, at least the chronic ones. And work on, go back to the force-length relationship and the force velocity curve, and work on trying to get those muscle groups stronger when they are at length. And work on, I see so many training products out there for hockey that really work on strengthening the groin when it's at its shortest and strengthening those muscles at their shortest. But we want to get away from that and actually get those muscles to be stronger when they're at a longer length, because that's where those injuries really take place. And obviously there's also all the pelvic stability and core stability work that you have to do, otherwise this is all completely a moot point.
Okay. And Julien, where can people get more information about yourself?
You can get more information about me at julienemery.com, Julien Emery, Emery.com, or as well at humanmotion.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Julien, and thank you very much, exercisesforinjuries.com blog readers and listeners. This is another interview for you when it relates to exercise and injuries. I hope you picked up a couple tips when it comes to working with a hockey player that has a growing injury. So we will see you on the blog. Take care, and bye-bye.